Aleksandar will be our last but not least speaker today. Just before we start, I want to say please stay at the closing ceremony. We'll be closing the conference, and also we'll be having a raffle for all the prizes that you participated in. So yeah, please stay. And as far as Aleksandar goes, Aleksandar is a software developer, architect, and a developer advocate at RavenDB. He created and maintains the RavenDB PHP Client library. In his talk, Aleksandar will explore the challenges of translating libraries between different programming languages. He'll share practical strategies and real-life examples from his experience. He was adapting C# code to Java and PHP environments. Please give a warm welcome for Aleksandar.
Thank you. So, in this lecture, I intended to display how you can translate your libraries from one language to other language. And why is that important? We will talk about that a little later. And just a couple of words of myself. As Juza told us, I am a software developer interested in craftsmanship, building resilient systems, mainly with event sourcing. Currently, I work at RavenDB as developer advocate, and RavenDB is a multi-model NoSQL database. And also, beside this, I'm a co-founder of a developers club that gathers under developers, and our sole purpose is just knowledge sharing. Okay, so let's talk about multi-language API libraries. Actually, what are multilingual API libraries? It is a group of same software library written in different programming languages and designed to support your SaaS product. Why do you need this? Let's say you have your software as a service developed, and that can be any kind of product, something like payment processor, ERP system, AI tool, or database, as it is in my case. What does your business want? It wants to increase revenue. And in order to increase revenue, your business needs more users. What is the simplest way to increase users? Yes, is to integrate your product with other products and provide additional value. So, first thing you need to do in that case is to create API in your product. Simple REST API. That would be enough. And, OK. Next thing, when you create that API, you can connect different products, different SaaS products, mobile applications or desktop applications to your product. And here we have a small issue that every of this product, if that's not from your company, some other one who created, needs to implement everything, every call to your application and to know how your API is working. So what do you want in that case? You want to lower the entry barrier for someone to use your product. And you are doing that by creating a simple client library. So here is the question. What client library you will choose? Or actually, what language will you choose to create your client library? Usually that goes same programming language as you used to develop your main product. In our case, that is the C#. After a while, you said, OK, we have our product for the C# developers and C# community, but what about Java community? Look how big it is. Or Go community, or PHP community. So what you want in that case, you want to develop your client in all these languages. And now you have an issue. Now you have to maintenance all these clients in different languages, and most of your effort going there instead of just adding or maintaining your main product. So what we can do to make our life easier? That is the talk of this lecture. So we should explore different approaches, and we will give some strategies how we can do this easier. So first approach comes from answering this question: can I use some API client generator? So we have open API, standard, given documentation there, and some client generator can use it and create client. And can we use it? Here is the typical engineering answer. It depends. If your client is just a simple wrapper around your API, in that case, you can use something like Swagger CodeGen or some AI code generator that will create your client. But in a situation, if your client needs to hold some logic inside of it, like in our case, when our RavenDB cluster that is made up of multiple nodes, and it has master-to-master replication, so every node can accept write from the application and distribute that data to other nodes. In that case, we cannot do this. Why? Because we had implemented node balancing logic directly inside of the client. So if when someone using that library, he just said, OK, you are connected to the cluster, and that's all. It gets information from cluster, what nodes it has, send this data to cluster. If one node fails and he tries to write to that, automatically will client do the write to the other node. So that kind of logic is not something that will some code generator or AI tool create on its own. OK, so we need to write that code. What would be the second solution in our case? Is it possible to automatically transpile code from one language to multiple others? Is that possible? Yes. There is something that's called JCL to CL, so you can automatically transpile your code from Java to Clojure or Java to JS, or even something better, like Hex. And it supports all these languages. But what is an issue here? Issue is that this library requires some maintenance, and it's not always up to date. So in my case, when I work with PHP, this Hex officially supports only conversion to PHP 7. And PHP 8, that is on the market for almost 3 years in the version 8. So it's not that you can rely on it. And one way to solve that kind of issues is to put your effort in maintaining those kind of library. And now you're, again, away from your product. So you don't want to do that. So what can you do? In that case, you can write your own libraries from the scratch. And the real question here is, how am I supposed to do that? So now we are coming to the several strategies, how to do this, and how that can help us. It's easier. OK, let's start with the first thing. single source of truth. This is non-questionable. You cannot have your source of truth in several places. You need to have in one. And where you're going to put it? Usually, you will put it in your primary library. So you need one library to rule them all. All new features are going to start from that library. You will add that there, and then you will just translate to other libraries. Similarly, all the bug fixes will start from that main library. Now, when we have this, we need another rule when we are working with all this library. And that is, what we need is to ensure consistency in business logic. So, what this means? This means to have consistent code in all your libraries is more important than to have, let's say, command query separated well in your code. So that means if you created some non-optimal code in your primary library, you need consistently translated that to all the other libraries. You cannot do the optimization during the translation of that code. Why? Because you will end up that some of the derived library will have much better code than the original, and then you're going to lose all your things in that chaos. So let's take a look at this slide. Maintaining the indentation and the variable naming and everything inside of your libraries is important. And you can see that it's same in Java and in PHP. Okay. And how to do that when you start your translation process? You will start by some technique I used and name it simple copy-paste. I created all the classes given in the primary library and just copy all the code. As you can see here, this code that is commented out, it's Java code, and the uncommented is a PHP. So what we are doing, we are not trying to translate everything immediately. We are trying just to translate and uncomment only the things we need. And the rest of it will stay commented out. Why is this? Why I did this? Because I have several, as we like to say, God classes in my library that have 3,000 lines of code. And translating that file without knowing are you doing or not the good work, actually, are it executing or not, you cannot translate everything and then try. So you are going piece by piece. But you want everything to be copied there and to know, to track easily what you finished and what you're not. But with what should I start and how to test that one piece of code that it is working? Okay, we are going to another simple thing when I say you should start with tests. Yeah. And what kind of tests we should start here? Am I talking about TDD? No. TDD in this case won't help us much. We use simple behavior-driven design and those kind of tests. So we start with just the happy path tests. You create simple test and then you uncommenting your code in your library and translating it until that path goes green. When it's go green, you start with the next test. And then when it's green, you're going until it's super green. and then you're finished, actually, with translation and things like that. You can cover edge cases, but that's the side thing later. Another thing, you are finding bugs in your code. I didn't see anyone who writes bugless code. That's a myth. So you need to treat your bugs in the same way as you are doing this. First, you are going to fix them in the primary library, and then you will lower that down to other libraries. But what if the bug is something about PHP part, not about C# or Java? OK. In that case, you need to do the next thing and separate infrastructure from business logic. This is extremely important. So regarding all those things I spoke about having business logic consistent, it is here. When you are putting it on the one side, an infrastructure that is regarding to the language and everything language or libraries you're going to use in that derived libraries goes to other place. So how to start here? This is something to laugh about, but this is the simplest advice you can give someone. Physically separate code to different folders. And I don't know how many times I told this to developers. Again, in the end, they mix code and business logic. And here, it is simple. You just put all the main files to the main folder, all the things related to infrastructure, and all your business logic into application folder. Or call it library, however you want. So, when I say domain, next thing you should do is to create domain classes. So, nothing much to say here. You just do your classes and speak that domain language there. Next thing is much more important. Everything regarding date and time you must put in your own domain classes. Why? Because date and time is implemented in every programming language differently. In Java, you have duration. In PHP, you don't have it. You have period. And if you put that period or duration into your business logic, you will need a mental challenge when you are trying to implement one part to another part and so on. So easiest thing you can do is create your own classes that handle everything regarding date and time and put it there and use it into your business logic. Into your business logic also, you should avoid primitive obsession. So if you don't know what is primitive obsession, just Google it when you go home. I won't speak about that much. And another thing here are adapters. Adapters are very important thing when you do this separation of concerns and when you are implementing everything that is not part of your code, of your business part. So everything that is external, so in our case, I'm using some client library and I don't want to use it directly, so create RavenDB client, then inside of that class, you will implement the communication with. One more thing that needs adapter also are some language-specific features. Here, in this case, it is formatting, again, that is given for the date, but also it goes for serialization and other things. Because in PHP, you have that global function JSON encode, JSON decode. You can use it, but you don't want to use it in your business logic. And that's almost all of it, except I have one more thing to add to the end. And this is little, I don't know how to say, but someone don't understand why. You should avoid method and constructor overloading. So this is something that is very bad if you need to translate your library from one language to another language. Why? Because some languages don't have methods overloading, like PHP. And you can see here that we have same two methods with the same name, but different parameters. And if I want to implement that in PHP, I need to do it like this. And if I do it like this, to accept ID or entity as the first parameter, I need to create method resolver inside of that class. Yes, it is simple, but it is ugly. It is making a problem, to maintain it. And if that's not enough, yeah, we have more time series 4, not just 2 in the main class. Okay, I just added typed in front of the time series 4, and I was able to concat 4 methods to a single one. But mostly that's it. The same things go with the constructors. So constructor overloading, yeah, but what that is? It is simple. You can use named constructor, and you will get the same result. It would be much more readable and, in the end, easier to maintain. So with this, I would like to conclude and say what are the strategies for development. It is single source of truth, ensure consistency in your business logic, start with tests, separate infrastructure from business logic, and avoid method constructor overloading. And that's it.
Thank you, Aleksandar. Any questions? You can also, oh, we have one here.
Okay.
Just a second, we'll give you a microphone. Can you raise your hand again, please?
Okay.
Yeah, in the meantime, you can also ask questions through the Whova app, and we'll read it out loud.
Hi, so interesting illustration of the approaches, but I just wanted to know, like, if you're starting with the assumption that you can have the same thing in all languages, aren't you losing on some of the features of the languages themselves? Like you said, I mean, in this case, you said try to avoid method overloading, but that's like the good feature of Java. Like, how do you cover that feature gap between languages? What do you suggest there?
I'm talking here about easier maintenance of your library. So in the end, our ultimate goal is when you have implement one feature in the primary library, you won't just be able to, in an hour or two, implement everything in the derived libraries. So you need to make some compromises in that cases. So this compromise with using named constructors it's not an issue with the performance or something like that, as I see. Or if there is a small performance issue, okay, we can live with that. But
so basically, go with the most common, like the least feature set that every language supports. Try
yes,
to get that. Okay.
yes, that's.
Thanks.
Okay, we have one from the Huva app. It says, what is primitive obsession?
Yeah, I feel like I'm not going to speak about that, but okay, let's say, find it. That is, okay, here it is. Primitive obsession is that when you create your class and inside of your class, you need some property. In our case, you need some property in your class that will be temperature. And you want to set that temperature. You don't want to put that temperature to be float number directly into your class, not this class, but some other class, let's say room, and you are tracking the temperature into room. So instead of using directly temperature in your class as a float number, you create a class like this one, temperature, and into that temperature, because this is the most important part here, as you can see. So why? Because temperature cannot be below this number, and you need to prevent that. And in order to prevent, if you don't want to do it every time when you are setting that temperature, everywhere you code, you want to isolate that part and put that check on one single place. So if you are not creating temperature class for the temperature, then you are doing it with the primitive, and primitive, that is primitive types like float, integer, string, and so on. And creating a class that will wrap that property is something that solves the primitive obsession. Am I answering the question?
I think so. Yeah, Milan can approach you later if you haven't.
Okay.
There's another one. Can we apply this strategy when we need client for languages hard to compare? For example, Elixir, functional language, with JS and Rust.
Okay, in that case, you can do the different approach, but one thing that you shouldn't do is to skip the tests. You need to have the same set of tests. In the end, you will have two different libraries that are not maintainable by default, to just copy your business logic from one to another, and you will have more job during the maintenance.
Yeah, makes sense. Any questions in person?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, up there. Can you raise your hand again, just a second? At the back.
Thank you. Just one question. How do we define the difference between infrastructure and business logic? I haven't quite understood that part.
Sorry, can you repeat?
The difference between infrastructure and business logic.
How to define? That is everything. How to define infrastructure? Infrastructure is your database, is your external system. Everything that is not directly imply your decision you are making for your business. So everything of those things go to that part, infrastructure. So in our case, even the language is infrastructure. So that's why I created adapters for everything that is language specific. So you are moving there. So that comes with experience. I cannot answer better than this.
Anyone else? If not, you can always approach Aleksandar later. And that's it from this talk. See you back in 5 minutes where we're going to give out prizes and close out the conference. Thank you all.